Up next on Davidson and Company, the man whom my wife would leave me for in a heartbeat, actor, comedian, writer, Chris Elliot. I'm Larry Davidson. Welcome to another edition of Davidson and Company. My guest, Chris Elliot, is an Emmy award-winning writer, producer, and comedian. He wrote and performed on Saturday Night Live and Late Night with David Letterman. He starred in the sitcom Get a Life and the films Cabin Boy and There's Something About Mary. His book, The Shroud of the Thwacker, has been released in paperback. And Chris Elliot, welcome.
Thank you very much, Larry. It's good to be here.
And I got the title of the book.
You did.
Out.
You did.
I'm
The Shroud of the Thwacker.
I wish it would be The Shroud of the Slacker. It's much easier for me to say.
That's
a parody on a parody.
That's the sequel.
All right.
And
Tell us about the book, though.
Well, it's a historical crime thriller that takes place in New York City in 1882. But I've done no research on the time period whatsoever. So everything is either made up or just plain wrong in the book. And as you said, it is out in the paperback now, but I do want to tell everybody that the hardcover is better.
Okay. Well, in my book, the hardcover book, you wrote, yes, It is all true.
Yes.
And since it's all true, and it takes place in 1882,
right,
to this day, how old is Liz Smith?
Well, that's interesting. She's a character in the book, but there is a little time travel in the book. So, I can't really pinpoint her age because she actually could be a lot younger than she's pretending to be now. A lot like you.
Well, let's talk about some of that bogus research. Did you find in your real research where the original Ray's Pizza was in New York City? Let's
say it's up on 85th Street in Columbus, but I've seen the original Rays all over New York City, so I couldn't really pinpoint that for you either.
And did you also come up, in terms of your research, the origins of the first mugger in New York City?
Well, not to give away too much in the book, but I actually, I end up going back in time myself to the 1800s, and I turn out to be the first mugger in New York City.
So when you came up with this concept of the book, because you've had such a storied career, why did you decide to take the great leap of faith and write this book?
Well, the original idea was to do a kind of coffee table book, a history of New York City, without doing any research. But I had read the Alienist and Caleb Carr's work, and I was a fan of Jack Finney. Had done Time and Again, I guess, which is a great book. And then I had just read Patricia Cornwell's book on Jack the Ripper, where she blames the Ripper murders on. And so I sort of combined all those books. Every year there's a new Ripper book out, and so I thought, well, I could tell a story here about a kind of a Ripper wannabe. It's Jack the Jolly Thwacker in my book, and he doesn't actually rip his victims. He thwacks them upside the head with a bag of Macintosh apples.
Is it also true, you
Yes.
grew up in New York City,
Yes.
that you would do anything to get a great apartment, whether it's in a Dakota or any place else in New York City, no matter where it takes you, what you have to do, you will cross that line to get a great apartment in New York City.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was actually pretty lucky growing up in New York City because I was raised in what is now the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
On which level? Above ground or below ground?
The whole place was
The whole place was yours?
ours. Yeah. And it was a little different back then. We had like little pink flamingos out front. And,
I like that. On the lawn?
A lot of shag carpeting inside
Okay.
and that kind of thing. But yeah, that was where I was raised.
Well, since you were raised there in that great museum.
Yeah. Well, we gave it to New York.
You did give it to New York. So
yeah.
Kudos for that. So
Sure.
your father must have made a lot of money in his profession. Who is your father?
My father is Bob of the popular comedy team Bob and Ray. Or Ray. I don't know. I get the two of them confused.
And they also used to do, what was it, the Peels commercials?
They did, actually. They used to do commercials for Peels beer, which it was funny because it apparently was not a great beer, but people loved the commercials, and it was I think they were the only commercials that were actually in the TV Guide They would just tell you when the Bob and Ray, Bert and Harry Peel's commercials were going to be on.
Here's what I'm going to ask my last and first and last penetrating question for you, Chris Elliot. It's probably obvious, but where does that great comedic sensibility come from? And who are you channeling if not thinking about your father? Because obviously you have your own unique comedic style.
I think it comes from my dad. I mean, luckily I was raised by a very...
Not by wolves. We
No,
want to dismiss that rumor. It's not an urban legend,
That's
is it?
right.
Okay.
And, I did not go to college. I went to, right away, started working at Late Night with David Letterman and writing for him. And so that he, my mentor, and sort of, helped me along and encouraged me to do whatever the hell it is that I do for a living, Larry. But I think it comes from my dad and from Dave.
When you talk about David Letterman late night, I think he's gifted. I think he's one of the best interviewers out there, no matter what the medium is. Who opened the door for you to get in there? Was your dad that opened the door for you? Because not everybody can knock on the Letterman door and say, Dave, please, I want to work for you.
Well, at the time, anyone could.
Well, there you go with that question.
No, it was before. It was right when Late Night was starting up. I was working at PBS actually as a runner.
How much money were you making at PBS?
I think I was making like $300 a week, and
Okay.
I got this opportunity to get a job on this new show with David Letterman, but my salary would go down to $200 a week, and so I almost didn't take it, and I almost stayed at my high-paying PBS job, and then it was my dad who said, no, you got to go there. It's you want to be in comedy, and that's where you need to go.
So where did that character come from? You are beloved, no pun intended, for that character that you had on David Letterman.
It started as a joke that I would come out. I was a staff member who desperately wanted to be famous, and there was a lot of truth to that. And that's basically, it would start to develop where I would come out and I would do something really silly, and then I would turn on Dave and have kind of an attitude with him. And the audience loved that. They loved to see me kind of put Dave on the spot. And I always knew, when I came out there, whether or not the audience was laughing, if Dave was laughing, I was doing okay. And so the persona that I've developed has always been sort of making fun of myself, doing whatever it is I'm doing. And essentially that's with this book as well. It's a parody of a novel. It is a novel, but it's also a parody of a novel. And it's also kind of a parody of what my first novel would be, that I would try to write, this, and it's sort of written in that way.
So you got this good gig with David Letterman. You probably could have been happy to stay there. You decided to take the big move up. Mm-hmm. What brought you to Saturday Night Live?
Well, that actually was later. The first thing I did after Letterman was my own show called Get a Life, which I had to do because they were sort of offering me at the time to do something there. And then, of course, from there I jumped to Cabin Boy.
And who made
what
that
was
choice
that
for
laugh?
you? Well, get back to Get a Life, because
Yeah.
you were a 30-year-old paper boy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to put this person in with you, but I think of Eugene Ionesco in the Theater of the Absurd.
Uh-huh.
A 30-year-old paper boy, slightly, a tinge of being absurd.
Yeah.
So a classic character, can I put you in the same time frame, in the same box as Ionesco?
I guess you could. The reason that I was a paper boy is kind of funny. The initial idea was just that I was going to be out of work and living at home with my parents. And Fox didn't want me to be, they said, no, he's got to be responsible. He needs a job. So I said, okay, well, he's a paper boy. And they said, oh, no, that's silly. That's a 30-year-old paper boy. That can't be it. Think of something else. And seriously, I swear, I called them like 2 days later and said, okay, he's the head paper boy.
Okay.
And they were fine with that.
Okay,
They said,
that's Fox.
He's got
Fox.
kids underneath him. That's great. Yeah, that's perfect. So that's why I was a 30-year-old paper boy.
Was your dad in that too?
Yes, my dad played my dad in it. Not my first choice.
Who was your first choice? Not your mother.
No, Buddy
Okay.
Epson.
Buddy Epson.
Yeah.
I like Buddy Epson.
Yeah.
He would be perfect for that.
He was allergic to the silver paint.
All right, so I kind of jumped ahead, but let's go to Saturday Night Live, which is iconic. Good
Yeah.
friend of yours. He's been here before. Alan Zweibel is
Right.
famous for the writing for
Right.
Saturday Night Live. Great tradition. Over the years, it's had its ebbs and flow.
Mm-hmm.
When did you go there?
I don't know.
All right. Well, then make an answer up. Please.
Honestly, I blacked out that year. I don't know. Was there 93? I guess 94. I all through my years at Letterman, people were telling me, "Oh, you have to go to Saturday Night Live. That's where you need to go. You'd be perfect there." And as a kid, I always thought, "Oh, that's what I need to do." In fact, I took my job at working for Dave, thinking, "Oh, it'll be a stepping stone to be a writer at Saturday Night Live." But when I finally went to Saturday Night Live, I had already developed this persona of this guy making fun of himself, and you can't really do that at SNL. You can't come out as a character and then step aside and kind of make fun of yourself doing that character, which is what I was doing at Letterman. You really have to commit to your characters, and all those performers do. So, ironically, it turned out to be the wrong place for me to be.
Have you had the same agent over the years?
No.
Okay, I can see why you probably have changed over the years.
Yeah, I change about once a week.
And you probably changed after this particular performance on Saturday Night Live. Long Island's favorite, Joey Buttafuoco.
Oh my God!
Was that another? Did you black that one out too?
Until you've just brought it up here. Thank you. Yeah, I think that was when I finally just realized, well, what this just isn't working. When I was in a sketch with Joey Buttafuoco, he was terrific, but I think that was the lowest point for me at SNL.
Another skit I think that you write about or spoken about is the skit based on Lee Harvey Oswald. And This is how your mind works. So how was that funny? And was that another high point, low point, somewhere in between your career?
I guess it was probably the closest to what I used to do. That's why I hold it up as probably the only thing I was proud of doing at SNL at the time, which was that I came out and just said I was leaving the show and that I was going to write a book about everything that happened, something like that. And then I walk out of the hallway and it turns to black and white and it looks like Lee Harvey Oswald being brought out in Dallas, and then and Lorne Michaels is by my side there, and then I get shot. But it sounds rather sad now, but it was hilarious on air. Anything with Lee Harvey Oswald
it's a winner. It's a
gold.
no-brainer. Yeah. Well, you also spent a fair amount of time, I believe. There used to be dinners before or after Saturday Night Live with Lorne Michaels.
Mm-hmm.
Lorne Michaels. And I believe one of the famous ones that's been written about in a book about SNL is you, Lorne Michaels, and John Travolta having dinner together. I mean, I don't want to be a fly on the wall, but if I was a fly on the wall, as much as you want to take it, what transpired there, Chris Elliot?
Those dinners, I love those dinners because you did get to meet the hosts and you got to. I'm still starstruck.
You're not starstruck.
I am starstruck.
You walked in here and said, Larry Davidson, next. Come on.
Well, I thought I was going to be interviewed by Larry David.
So that's the first time I've heard that.
So when I saw you, I'm sure it isn't. But no, I remember John Travolta saying that he had always felt that Welcome Back, Kotter was kind of the sister show to Saturday Night Live.
Welcome Back, Kotter, Saturday Night
Yeah.
Live. What?
Kind of just this sort of pause at the table, and everyone just, see that. But that's all that happened that dinner.
Saturday Night Live has launched some terrific people. One of them is Bill Murray. One of my favorite films is Groundhog Day, which you're in.
Mm-hmm.
You were a shooter, which is a camera person. I love the concept of that film. Was that your first experience with Bill Murray, or did something transpire earlier? Because I got a feeling that you had a wonderful experience early on, at least witnessing the genius of Bill Murray, if I can say that.
My first encounter with him was I was 17 and I went to be I got an interview with Lorne Michaels through my dad to try to do extra work on Saturday Night Live. I may have been 16. I showed up at at 8H at NBC, and they sat me in the studio, and Lorne is always somewhat late with his meetings, and so I waited there for a long time, and I watched them rehearse Saturday Night Live at the time, and all through the rehearsal they kept over the PA system, paging Bill Murray. Where's Bill? Where's Billy? Where is he? And he was late, and he wasn't there. And about 5 hours into this rehearsal, the elevator doors open, and Bill Murray comes out, and his hair he looks like a mad dog. His hair is just all over the place. And my memory of this, it may be wrong, is that there were two women holding him up on either side, and he had a bottle like of Jack Daniels, and he kind of stumbled into the studio and then walked right to his mark and just flawlessly nailed this commercial parody rehearsal perfectly, and then stumbled out of the studio and back to the elevator bank, and I realized, that right then and there, that's what I want to be able to do for a living. Stumble in and do my job and leave.
Everybody, well, you got a few more minutes.
Yeah.
Everybody has famous Chris Elliot stories about all the programs that you've done. How did you end up doing, if my information is correct, and if it's not, go with it anyway,
Sure.
a one-man show about FDR? I can picture you in a lot of things.
Yeah.
One-man show about FDR is something a little bit out of my
Right.
viewing range.
Right. Well, it was a parody, so it wasn't really
that
a
answers it
one-man
then.
show.
Okay.
But what was funny is that I had seen a cable show with Robert Vaughn doing FDR.
The man from Uncle.
Right, but he did a one-man show as FDR,
Right.
and I was, I saw it so many times that I was really doing a parody of it, and all the reviews that came out of my parody said that I don't sound anything like FDR, and the reason is I was actually doing Robert Vaughn as FDR.
In a wheelchair. Were you doing it in a wheelchair?
Absolutely.
Okay, just want to make sure if it's accurate.
Yeah. Well, I think I did get up and have a knife fight at one point.
All right, well, that's allowed.
And I sat back.
Dramatic license.
Sure.
Okay, it can be done.
Yes.
It can be done.
You have to stretch every now and then.
Everybody loves Raymond. We got all these shows. Everybody hates Chris. Everybody loves Raymond. Are those shows, first of all, talk about your involvement in that. And are those shows disappearing, the traditional sitcoms? Because NBC came out with this big pronouncement, no more expensive shows, no more sitcoms, no more dramas, reality TV. They're just too expensive. So in a sense, are they becoming dinosaurs, those traditional
I think
shows?
they are. I mean, I think these one-camera shows are sort of taking over. What
do you mean by one
well,
camera
one
show?
camera as opposed to, Everybody Loves Raymond, that's done in front of an audience with multi-cameras, and you shoot it basically like a one-act play.
Right.
You rehearse it all week, and you shoot it in front of the audience, and you do maybe 2 or 3 takes of each scene. But when you have one camera, it's shot like a movie, and you shoot it over a course of a few days, and there's no audience, and it's basically like a movie, and it's a totally different feel. And it's funny because it used to be where you couldn't pitch a one-camera show, and now it seems to be sort of a more of a popular thing right now. But I do think like Raymond was like one of the last great acted shows and great written shows. It was sort of, to me, kind of like what All in the Family was when I was growing up. It was just the perfect sitcom.
One of my favorite shows of all time is the Larry Sanders Show
Mm-hmm.
on HBO. I also like the one with Lisa Kudrow.
Yeah,
come
which
back.
is not on anymore.
No,
right?
and it went one
Unfortunately.
season. It was terrific.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
like it because it takes you behind the scenes, like 30 Rock does,
Right.
Studio 60 on Sunset Strip, into the writer's room. So you've been in a lot of rooms with comedic. Are they really funny, or are they talking about the latest purchase they've made and Malibu and something else? I mean, as much as you can, tell us what really goes on behind the scenes.
There's an incredible amount of wasted time, an amazing amount of just wasted time talking about what to order. In fact, Phil Rosenthal's. That's pretty much what you talk about between 9 and 12, and then you get to work afterwards. But yeah, there's a lot of wasted time, and then there's a lot of just funny stuff happening that will never see the light of day. That's just depending on what the room is and the vibe in the room. I've been in some great rooms, and I've been in some deadly rooms, and I've been in rooms that I just want to get the hell out of, and then other rooms. I just did this pilot that did not go at CBS, but I did it with some writers out there, and Alan Zweibel actually worked on it, and it was so much fun just going into that room. It was just a lot of fun.
With your track record, with Alan Zweibel, every time I talk to somebody, I learn more about him, how much he's respected in the industry. Why didn't it work?
Well, I think that CBS this last season, they did 13 pilots and they picked up 1. So they initially I think they were going to open up Wednesday night for a comedy night, so
the
they
block,
did all
the
the
block.
yeah, but they ended up going sort of more the drama other than that, I couldn't tell you. As far as I was concerned, was terrific. So.
You've also were in a movie called Kingpin,
Mm-hmm.
which I like, with the Farrelly brothers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they are offbeat. I don't know. Once again, the perception is they must be a lot of fun to work with because they seem to be
Yeah, they
within
are.
certain parameters.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, no, they are.
My
crazy.
guess is you fit in very well with that at certain times. What
Right.
was that like?
It's great. I mean, those guys. I've done a few movies with those guys, and they're just like, what you would imagine. They're just like drinking buddies. They're buddies you'd want to, have a few beers with at the bar and just joke around with, and that's the way it kind of is on the set. I know I had quite a few beers for something about marriage.
Forgive me, I'll do the James Lipton
Sure.
inside the actor studio question. When you're on set working with a director, you want someone who's going to tell you exactly what to do, or they're just going to let the camera roll like John Cassavetes used to do and just play with it, as many takes as you want, and just kind of have fun.
That's what I've been doing here.
Well, so far, we hope it's been fun for you. But how's the movie set for you? Have you directed any movies? Is that something
I've directed some short films, and
with little people? You mean just short films? I'm politically incorrect.
Thank you.
All right.
So I've directed some little films. Then I guess is the way to say it. No, I generally I don't really pursue movies. If somebody, when I do a movie, it's basically because somebody needs a psycho or somebody, and they know me, and they call me in because they want me to do what I do, and they let me do what I want to do. I'm not, I've never sort of considered myself an actor, and whatever I do, it's all by instinct, and it's whatever comes out comes out. I can never repeat exactly what I do.
So. Consider yourself an actor. What do you consider yourself in the morning when you look yourself in the mirror, and how do you look at yourself?
Like this.
I like that look. One eye went up, one eye went down. That's good.
I don't know. I've never really had, and this goes back to what we first started talking about. I started on Letterman making fun of myself wanting to be an actor. And eventually, and this is absolutely true, I became what I was making fun of on the show. I became, a guy coming out and plugging stuff.
So you're not your own worst nightmare, are you?
And I'm my wife's worst nightmare, let's put it that way. No, I just think that, I've never taken myself seriously as anything. So it's always funny to me to hear people call me an actor or a writer or a performer or anything, because to me, I'm just kind of a goofy guy that luckily gets paid for it occasionally. I'm getting paid for this, yes?
You are. The check is in the mail.
Good.
Somewhere down the line.
Terrific.
You may get it, you may not get it. And if it bounces like that, don't worry. Don't worry about it.
One of those deals.
Father was a performer in show business. You're in show business. I think I've met both of your daughters.
You may have met both of them. Yes, you have.
I have. In two different venues, I met both of your daughters.
Right.
So what's in store for them? Do they want to be in show business like their grandfather and their father?
Yeah, they do. And the oldest one is out in L.A. acting now. She has an agent, which is a huge deal, and she's out there, going to auditions and so forth. And then she's 19, and my 16-year-old, I think, is going to be a writer. She knows more about comedy than I do. You should have her on the show.
We will have her next. We will have her next. Who makes you laugh? If you had to go into a comedy room and sit down and actually pay for it, because my guess is you can walk in and get in free. Who would you pay for? Who actually, pushes that laugh? My daughter says, "Daddy, you're not funny," so she'll never pay for it. See anything that I'm involved with.
Right.
But who?
Well, I would agree with your daughter.
She's right. I'm not that funny, but I'm hanging in with you anyway.
I haven't laughed yet. But
everybody else is behind the scenes.
Well, I've
they're
been laughing at you, but not with you.
I'll take that.
All right.
It's okay. Who makes you laugh?
There's no doubt David Letterman still makes me laugh. I can't, he is, and I'm not just saying that because well, maybe I am. I don't know. He was such an influence with me that, and I saw something with Carl Reiner saying the same thing about Sid Caesar, which is
that great writing room is infamous
right.
and famous.
Right.
But Woody Allen was there. They
Woody
were
Allen
all there.
But to me, even if I write whatever I do now, I'm always in the back of my mind thinking, would Dave think it's funny? And and I think that, you ask who makes me laugh. Dave still makes me laugh really hard.
So what?
And in terms of comedians, I'm blown away by everybody out there.
No, you're not.
I am.
Not
There
everybody.
isn't. Well, there's very few people that can't, at some point in their act or at some point in what they're doing, make me laugh. And anybody that can do that, I admire, because I have no sense of humor.
So is it physical comedy? Is it cerebral comedy? You don't care what they're doing, you're going to laugh.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I mean, there's this group Stella that's out there. These guys that I like a lot. They make me laugh a lot. And then my daughter actually has just turned me on to some British thing. Little Britain. Which I think that's the name of it. Which these two guys have too. But at the same time, I can, watch Robin Williams, who I grew up with and have seen forever, and know what his thing is. But he'll still make me laugh. He'll still make me laugh, and I admire that with any of these comedians. I went to with Alan Zweibel. Actually, we were at the Friars roast for Jerry Lewis a few months ago, and the comedians there, some whom I knew and some whom I didn't, each one of them got up and I laughed. I'm very appreciative of people that can do that. In terms of who, influence-wise, Bill Murray always was, and Harry Shearer is a huge, influence to me, and those are the kind of people that, I gravitate towards.
Under 2 minutes left. I am told you're working on your next book. What are you thinking about? What are you writing about?
I finished it, actually.
You're done thinking about it.
I'm done thinking
You're
about
done writing it. So I knew I'd come up with a really lousy question at the end. Thanks. You didn't bail me out at all. All right, so now it's less than a minute you're going to talk about this book.
It's a new book. It's about me climbing Mount Everest with a bunch of celebrity friends.
Give me some of the celebrity friends.
Well, the
did
publisher,
you get releases from them?
They don't want me to give that away yet, but all I can tell you is I end up carrying Michael Moore halfway out.
And do you push him over the side like a lot of people would want?
I'm going to leave that. Leave that for the book. I have to read that.
Never enough time. You have an open invitation to come back, which means
thanks.
about 10 years from now you'll finally take my
No, that's
telephone
not
call
true.
again.
I'll stick around. Let's do another one.
We will do another one. All right, you heard it here. We'll do another one. I don't think it's going to be as funny because I'm out of questions, but I like when Letterman does this. He just throws the questions everywhere.
Yeah.
He's
ready
had
to
it.
go on. Yeah.
Well, we're ready to go on. Chris Elliot, thank you so much.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks for having me.
I'm Larry Davidson, Reverend here at Davidson and Company. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you next time.